What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And recently I've been kind of thinking about this whole idea of how reliant we are on different things like UI, add-ons, and so on and so forth within World of Warcraft Classic. Now, of course, things like weak auras are something like my favorite things in the world, but a lot of people don't play with these. We didn't have these, or even like damage meters or stuff like that back in the day. Things like deadly boss mods that tell us when any activity is going to happen or when any CD is off of cooldown for any boss. Anything like that really just makes this game a lot easier for us to play and a lot more convenient for us to play. But as a sort of a challenge, and also as a sort of just adding something a little bit interesting, I wanted to see what if we took all of that away? What if we took away all of our UI, even our own ability bars, and would we be able to be the top DPS within a raid? Now, this is something I've been recently calling full immersion mode raiding, and it's pretty much raiding like this. You can't see anything. So you're entering the entire raid without the ability to use pretty much any of your timers, but you can use pretty much every hotkey, just bind everything, and within like little breaks I would be able to swap back out and add like different buffs or consumables, things like that. But I went into a raid without any buffs against a lot of people in full bis gear, and I myself am by no means not geared. I have pretty decent gear, as you can see, and I just wanted to see, like, if you play well and you understand mechanics, how hard is it to just genuinely go in quote unquote blind and really perform? So today we're basically going to talk about that. There's a lot of videos out there on the best way of setting up your UI so that you can see everything. You can see your target, you can see target of target, target of target's target, you can see all of your combo points here, your energy, making sure you're tracking your weapon swings, making sure you're tracking your abilities like Slice and Dice or Jom Gabar and stuff like that. It's honestly, I mean, I don't have all of my normal CDs right now because I'm PvP spec'd, but basically anything like that. Weak auras in general. I mean, in all honesty, look at how many weak auras I have. I have so many weak auras, and I love to design them, and I love how they help with everything. But pretty much there's a lot of things that make this game more convenient, and it was kind of a challenge. But also I wanted to challenge people's ideas of how complicated this game is. And there's some people that focus so heavily on finding the right UI, on finding the right basically setup for everything, and just kind of have this idea that they can't perform if they don't have everything perfect. And that's a little bit of a crutch, and I wouldn't say I'm even mutually exclusive from this, because at the beginning of the game I had to design some of my own UI. So if we look right here in the middle, my resources tab, which has my energy ticks, my combo points, Slice and Dice, Crusader procs, and weapon swing all in the middle, this is like the most convenient thing in the world for me. But I do find myself looking at it quite a bit. It doesn't actually set me back from doing anything. It just is something. I like how somebody's trying to trade me to open a lockbox really fast. It doesn't set me back ever, but I do notice that a lot of times you can be focusing on something like this, and when we get into more complicated situations, even though Nax isn't too complicated, when we get into more complicated situations, we're actually not going to be able to focus so much on a smaller part of our screen. You're going to want to be looking out more so for a couple other things. So with that being said, let's hop right in and see how it went. Now, we went into BW Well, and this was without world buffs because we had lost our world buffs in AQ earlier, but a lot of people were subbing into the BW Well. They had their ults in the AQ, so then they have their main coming into the actual raid here for BW Well. And they do have full world buffs, or vice versa, having ults coming in that are geared with full world buffs. So it's going to be a little bit challenging. I do have a couple world buffs left, like Ani and the attack power buff from DM, but that's pretty much it for now, and it's only at the very beginning of this raid. Now, as I mentioned, I did this in BW Well, so we're going into BW Well, and I pretty much just wanted to focus on what the encounters are like or what matters on the encounters. So I at first was looking for a mob to get a slice and dice off on, but then I actually wanted to just build combo points on the boss. I was still on Discord, so I could hear when something was going on, and also you know how to call anything out, but I just wanted to get a pre-slice and dice off. I ended up using a FAP here so that I don't get stunned, and all of my cooldowns. I actually use Blade Flurry and Adrenaline Rush, and then somebody actually turned me into a bat as a meme, but that doesn't actually stop your DPS. I know that it stops you from using your on-use trinkets, so it was unfortunate that somebody did this and I didn't notice it. But as you can notice, look, I wasn't able to use Renatakis on that fight, and that was purely because somebody memed and they didn't want me to beat them on the meters on this individual fight. But I ended up being number 1 on Razorgore here. Then we go to the big boy, Veilstraws. How much DPS can you do on Veilstraws without your full world buffs and without even being able to see the boss or being able to see threat meters? The scary thing here, unfortunately for us, was some people did come in with full world buffs and pulled aggro multiple times while we were on the side of the boss that is a little bit sketchier. But even then, like, you pretty much just predict when you think you're gonna lose Slice and Dice, which isn't actually that hard, because if you've played this game enough, you kind of know when you're gonna lose Slice and Dice or when you're gonna gain anything else. And then when you assume you have a 5-point eviscerate, you can pretty much count it yourself and go for the 5-point eviscerate. Or if somebody pulls aggro, it's clutch to use your GCD on the eviscerate. Right there, 1.7k DPS without even looking. This is pretty much something that I kind of want to challenge people to do. I am going to be doing this, basically going for all 99s, either in AQ or honestly, yeah, in AQ. When Dark Moon Fair comes out, I do want to see if it's possible to get all 99s, which I've done already in BWL to get all 99s as a full immersion raid, where you are using all of your CDs. The only time you can go out of the immersion mode is to, after bosses, check your damage and to check for your consumes, basically. Now, one of the more interesting fights in this raid, as always, is going to be Fire Maw. And if you don't have the Uber's Fire Res buff and your guild isn't fully buffed, this is a fight that you still have to get out for. You can't just kind of stay in on the boss and burn him the whole time. So, my take here, and pretty much this is kind of like a thing that really is useful if you ever try doing something like this, but like, honestly, if you're not paying attention and you kill yourself or kill the raid, it's because you're genuinely not paying attention or you're focusing on something so minute, which, as I mentioned earlier, would be like that center HUD on your weapon swings, on how much combo points you have. But in all actuality, like, if everybody gets out, you think that everybody is getting out, then it's probably time to get out. On Fire Maw, you do get a red hue over your character while you are actually like debuffed, so you can see when the debuff is gone. It's really easy to pretty much just kind of follow people here, and you'll actually see, I will point it out that this actually screws me a bit on Chromagus, because I wanted to vanish a breath on Chromagus without being able to see the boss. I was able to vanish a fear on Neff, and also early or pre Will of the Forsaken of Fear on Neff, but you can't really vanish. You can vanish Vatch a breath on Chromagus, and I always do it, but my group actually ran out early, which was very weird. So people actually ran out early for that. Here I just decided to stay in, burn the boss, pretty easy. I ended up not being near the top of the DPS meters on this fight, but it was just like a fun, interesting fight to see. So here we are on Chromagus, and this was the one fight that I had to actually leave immersion mode a little bit, and that was because I got bronze debuff like 4 times, and I don't have my Hourglass Sand bound. I probably could have just set that up before the fight. As usual, like, so there are things that are extremely useful. Like when you see that everyone runs out, there's probably the breath right there. But like, honestly, a lot of people timed their breaths really wrong. They got out pretty early. As you notice, we actually got out for like way too long. That was like a full second longer than what you would want to do if you're trying to min max. And like, the takeaway from that is it is extremely useful having your own UI, because you can see when the breath is going out. Here is where I vanished early, and I assumed that the boss was gonna do his breath early, but look how early people got out. That was crazy early. So, and then I need to go out again to get rid of the hourglass sand, but that was crazy early. And if you really trust your guildies, you can absolutely just trust them to do a full raid without ever having to get out, without ever having to hide. And then on Neff, which is another really fun fight, Neff does a shaking effect. Whenever he is doing his fear, there's a shaking effect on your screen. So you can actually call that out, or you can see that coming, and you can pre-will the Forsaken, or you can know that it's going to be like a half a second or a second cast. So you can vanish it and just kind of time it out like I did right there. So it's another thing that there's a lot of visual cues for you to pay attention to in this raid. And if you're min-maxing, or even if you find yourself struggling in any ways, I think that you really can actually try to do this. It's a little bit of like practice, right? To get better at your class, to learn your class, to check what your slice and dice uptime was, to check if you dodged abilities or if you played well, just when you don't even have any UI up. You don't absolutely need to be reliant on all of these weak auras, on all of these pretty much DBM or add-ons, anything like that. They're extremely useful. But if you do something like this, which is just a challenge I pose to people, really, it's kind of just a meme. But if you want to have fun in this game right now, it can be a little stagnant until Nax comes out. Might as well try something new. But you can go in and see if you can be the #1 DPS in your raid or top DPS in your raid. So if we look out on the actual logs from this raid, on boss fights, I was number 3 throughout the entire raid. Punch it's unfair because he came in with full buffs, so that doesn't really count. So I was almost number 1. I was 20 DPS below number 1. And this isn't like a crazy amount of DPS by any means right here. But still, it just proves that you don't need to see everything going on, or you don't need too many things really giving you warnings or to distract you to perform well in this game. What you do want to do though is to master your class, master your craft basically, and use things like weak auras or DBM or just general add-ons just to add to the utility that you gain from this game. So pretty much knowing exactly when Slice and Dice is going to fall off and you want time to get a new one. Knowing exactly when to use Death Wish or when to use Earth Strike if Death Wish is at 20 seconds instead of the 30 seconds when you started it. It's extremely useful to have all of these things. And of course mine are in my Discord channel. If you want any of mine, I have a ton of them obviously. But you don't need to fully rely on them, or you don't need to assume that you can't perform without any of these add-ons or without your add-ons. Sometimes you have to play from another computer, or sometimes, I don't know, you just will get distracted or too reliant, and then you can't adjust in real-time situations where something happens out of time or something happens that's just really random. So this is basically a challenge I'm mostly saying to myself, but a little bit to you guys too. Might as well have fun with this game, but can you DPS or can you top the meters without any add-ons, without any UI, without relying on weak auras or anything like that? And the answer is honestly yes. I'll see you guys all on the next video. If you missed my last one, it was the first video that I actually allowed some of my personality come through. So the speedrun news, if you guys want a breakdown of every single strategy from all of the speedruns in a very quick and succinct way, make sure to check out speedrun news. But other than that, I'll catch you guys all on the next one.